All right, the 2024 World Championships are done and dusted, and yeah, definitely feels good to be leaving the island, feeling like I executed the game plan pretty well. Obviously, we always have higher aspirations when we're not the one holding the banner at the end, but overall, I can't be upset with 10th place, the first time being in the top 10 in the world. I've been 12th, 13th, and 15th in my other world championship races. So to finally crack the top 10 means a lot to me. Definitely happy to be able to bring home a bowl. That would have been a regret at the end of my career if I've never did what it took to earn one of those. So bringing that home from the Big Island was, yeah, definitely like goal number one of the week. And having Ash and Olivia meet me at the finish line was a pretty special moment, and we have a few pictures there that will mean a lot to me forever. So overall, really leaving the island feeling grateful and satisfied. And yeah, I mean, there's always a few little what ifs and if I would have done this, but overall, I'm happy. To break down the race a little bit, the swim start is always tough. I got a little bit unlucky at the beginning. You know, they do this chainsaw thing where people on surfboard just kind of rotate around and circle around in front of us to keep us all in a line from creeping forward. And they turn at the last minute, so then you can, right before the cannon goes off, and the guy that was in front of me didn't really get turned, and so I basically had to wait for everybody to go around before I could go. In the end, I don't think it affected that much. I was able to surge up, and having the colored swim caps definitely helps. They do that for media production, so people on the boats can spot who's in what pack, but that also allows us to kind of have a few targets that we want to be near. And so when the dust settled, I guess, 1,000 meters in, I was swimming on Gustav Eden's feet, and so I figured I was in a pretty decent place. In my head, during the time, I thought we would be in that first little chase group. Typically, there's a big pack up front, and then a few stragglers, and then a big second pack. I thought being with Gustav, it would be right in that kind of second. But I think Andre Lopez was leading the group, then Gustav, then me. And I think Andre was where that gap opened up between the first and the second group. And the little pack didn't break off until after the turn from post-race coverage. So once that was settled, it was a pretty comfortable swim the rest of the way. A few times where it felt like there was a surge going, or obviously it gets a little chaotic around the two turns on the far end. But other than that, it was settle in, be comfortable. I tried to move up to the front of the group coming into transition, got stung by a few jellyfish. Pretty much everybody got stung. I was one of the lucky ones that didn't get stung before the race, but a lot of people got stung as they were going out to warm up. I didn't. I got stung as I was coming out of the water. Didn't really affect anything, but it was something that everybody was talking about. Definitely stung a bit when you started sweating all over it, but other than that, it wasn't that big of a deal. Got through transition pretty clean, and then onto the bike. I knew the first hour was going to be hard. I made a mistake going up Palani that made it really hard for me. I was right where I needed to be on the out and back on the Kuakini Highway, and then going up Palani, Arnaud Guillaume passed me, and so I dropped back to make sure I came out of the red flashing light with the race rangers, and I dropped back too hard too fast, and a little bit of a gap opened up, and that gap by the top of Palani was about 15 seconds, and it took me over 25 minutes riding at threshold to close that gap, because if you're there, it's just a little bit easier, so you're comfortable, but closing gaps is really tough, especially in that right when everybody gets to the Queen K, because they hammer it. And I finally got back on and was able to ride, hard, but somewhat, within what I expected it to be until the bottom of the climb. And then I think Jack, who was sitting third in the group, Jackson Landry, went to the front right at the climb into Hawi, and he put an attack in, and I knew somebody was going to do it. Jack had been staying with me for a few weeks leading into the race, and he neglected to tell me that was part of his race plan. But so he went hard, and a couple of people fell off the back. I was able to hang on. And my plan all along going into the race was to try to stick with that chase group to the top of Hawi, and then let them go and do my own thing on the way home. And I wanted to do that. In 2022, I was by myself the whole time. I missed the group coming off of or as soon as we got onto the Queen K, that group was gone. And so I was in no man's land all day. And I was still able to run up into 15th. And I figured if I could stay to that group to the top of Hawi, and then kind of ride my target, and if it was with the group, great. If it wasn't, that's okay. And so the plan was to go to the top of Hawi. Somebody let a gap open with about 1.5 miles to go of the climb, and right in front of me, and I would have had to work really darn hard to close that gap. So that was the decision for me. It wasn't going to be worth it. I was planning on letting them go anyways at the top. So things splintered up a little bit there anyways. I think Chris Leiferman came through, Trevor Foley came through right at the turn. I was pretty much in no man's land the rest of the way down, and I was okay with that. I had to fight a few times. There's always a few dark moments when you're by yourself and no one really in sight. But Lionel passed with another couple of guys going through Waikoloa, and I rode with them for a few minutes. I was easily riding with them on the uphills. They're bigger boys, and on the descents they just go faster than me because gravity. So I eventually let them go as well, or they got rid of me, however one way you want to put it. And I just rode fairly conservative Ironman watts back into town. Got a report that I was in I got a bunch of reports anywhere between 30th and 33rd coming out of transition, but the gaps weren't huge, and I could, when you come into transition, you're seeing a bunch of runners leaving at the same time. The chase is going to be on at least, and I would have people to chase for a bit. And so that was it. It was, first target was top 20, then top 15, and then top 10. And I always a lot of energy along Elite Drive, and so that you have to hold back that entire stretch. I was starting to cramp a little bit mile 1 in the hamstrings, and so it was really, I think I took 2 gels the first 2 miles. So the fast food gels have a lot of sodium in them, and so I was relying on that to kind of get me back around. And by mile 3 I was running comfortable, so that plan worked and my stomach was okay with that. And then it was just settle in and try to chase one at a time and just keep trying to move up. When I got to the turnaround in Hawi, I think I was in 12th or 13th place at that point, and I could see everybody in front of me and kind of read their body language. And at that point I thought top 10 was definitely in sight, but I thought I had a chance of running into 8th or 7th. But the race never really came back to me. Part of it, I definitely slowed down. And I talked a little bit about this in the pre-race interview, but I hadn't been running much at all until the 2 weeks before the race. And I didn't really want to talk about that too terribly much coming into the race, because I didn't want to set up an excuse ahead of time, or make it seem like, oh, well, I'm setting the stage to not perform well or giving myself an out. And so I just didn't talk too much about it besides the people in my, kind of closed group, but it is what it is. And, I definitely felt the lack of mileage at the last 12 to 13K. And I was still running okay, but the pace had slowed about 10 to 20 seconds per mile, and that's what kept me from being able to move into ninth or eighth possibly. Obviously, it would have been a fight if I was able to get up with those guys. They weren't going to just give it up. Like Bradley Weiss was sitting 10th when I was trying to pass him, and it just wasn't closing. I closed a lot of time until the turn in the energy lab, and then I could always see him, but I just didn't feel like I was making a lot of gains. And then he, on one of the downhills, I put in a surge to catch and pass him right through an aid station, and so that was where I took over 10th, and then it was just nobody was up in sight. So it was just make sure I didn't screw it up at that point and lose 10th by doing something dumb. And turns out I was about 90 seconds out from 9th or 75, something like that. And that's a tough gap to close in the last couple of miles. But that's essentially how the race went. All in all, happy with the plan that I executed and the decisions that I made out there. Obviously, Patrick had an amazing performance, raised the bar of the sport, all-time record on the course, and to run that much faster than everybody else is super impressive. I had the second fastest run of the day, and I think he put 7 minutes into me, so you just got to tip your cap when somebody has a day like that. Ultra impressive. Obviously, the podium was fought hard for. It was a tight race up front until the last, or through the energy lab anyways, and so hats off to Magnus and Rudy. Great to see an American on the podium. Fun to see 2 Americans in the top 10 again. Thankfully I'm one of them. Bummed for Trevor, who crashed coming in. I think he would have had a good shot at a top 10 as well. He flew by me on the bike. So a lot of good performances, a few standout kind of surprises, which is always kind of fun to see. And there's always a few of the favorites that just don't have the day, and that's why you don't race on paper, as the saying goes. Obviously have to thank all the volunteers as well for making the day possible. As you're running through the aid station, I try to say thank you every now and then, but you get pretty focused and spill water on them, or just thanks to everybody who helped make this day possible. As soon as the Pro Series announced last year, that was the target, that was the goal, to get top 10 in Kona and to be in the top of the leaderboard at the end of the year. And I think I'll probably end up hopefully still in the top 5, but I think I could mathematically drop to 7th if everybody else that could possibly still pass me had great days at Worlds. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping to go race 70.3 Worlds still. It's Monday now. I fly home tonight and land at 6, and then I have surgery at 10 on my knee tomorrow. But I think if all goes perfect in the recovery and the lead up, I'll be able to get to the start line. If there's a single setback, I'll probably have to pull the pin, and that's okay. I've had a long season and a lot of races, and staying healthy is priority number 1 at this point. I've got a lot of good scores, so I think if I can't race, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't want to force a race and then have it affect 2025. So that's kind of the decision-making process. That's all I've got here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll give you an update here shortly on whether 70.3 Worlds is a go or not.